All right, so let's talk about React navigation. Well, React Native navigation, which is slightly different than the navigation we did for React.js. Here we're doing it for React Native. So this is targeting a mobile application, which is slightly different. On smaller devices, there are some very well defined techniques that we want to use for with smaller devices. So, for instance, stack navigators that allow you to drill down further into more details of the application and then be able to back out from a particular state. So we'll spend some time there. Let's see where we are right now with the current application. So this is under webdev React Native, and let's go in there. Webdev React Native. Where we left off, let's see, we were playing around with React Native forms. We looked at the picker. We looked at the button group, native element lists, icons. So let's now talk about navigation. So let's start this. Let's see where we left off. So this is going to package everything and transpile to something that can run in our simulator. So this is starting up the iOS simulator to see where we left off. While that's coming up, we'll take a look at the source code. This is our entry point app.js. Oh, I already played around with the Navigator. It's taking a while. All right, yeah. So this is already has a couple examples on what the navigation might look like. Let's backtrack a little bit and see where we were prior to that. Let me stop this. Git status. We'll do git branch. We'll put this away in a separate branch. Git checkout -b navigation. Application. We'll put that there. We'll add that. Commit. Experimenting navigation. There we go. And then we can go back to our other branch. And let's see. There we go. I think this is where we left off. Oops. Let's restart. All right, so while that's starting up, let's see. Do I need to restart the simulator? Maybe. There we go. So this is where we left off on last Thursday, right? We were playing around with the picker, with the with buttons, with the lists, with the forms, and so today we'd like to explore navigation, being able to have not just one component but multiple components, be able to navigate between the different components. So let's take a look at the slides for a minute. First, we'll need to install a library that implements navigation, right? Very much like we did for React.js. Right? We used a React routing library that allowed us to map different paths, right, to different routes, different links that allow you to click and then change the URL, and based on that URL changes, they would take you to a different component. Here's a slightly different. We're going to be using a different library called the React Navigation, which will allow us to also select which different component do we want to look at, but slightly different. Okay. Well, we're going to implement something simple here. Is we're going to just implement a couple of screens, screen A, screen B, home, and whatnot, and then we'll create what is called a stack navigator. A stack navigator allows us to create, as the name suggests, a stack. Be able to start at a position and then drill down further into more details into the application, and then backtrack by popping from a stack. So every time we move further into the application, we push the component that we were just in, right, and onto the stack. And whenever we want to return out of the navigation, we pop from the stack. Right? So it's a very common way of implementing a navigation in native applications. So what we're going to do is let's create a couple components. Maybe we'll create a login component, a register component, a profile component, and then maybe we can navigate between them all. Yes.
It's like breadcrumbs.
Yes, exactly. Right, which is very common. I mean, the iPhone introduced that way back in 2007, where you get further into the application, and then it gives you like a breadcrumb that allows you to navigate back where you were. It's a way of managing a lot of data and filtering out through like almost like a wizard, right, that walks you through multiple steps. Right, so let's create a couple components here, and maybe we'll create in a separate, or right here we can create a couple components. We'll call it this will be the home component, and the home component will be something like import React. This will be from React, and maybe import view from React Native, and maybe we'll need also a what else? Maybe a text from React Native elements. There we go. And this will be just a simple home component that will render as a view and as a text. H2 will be just home. Okay, and maybe we'll do an export and default home. All right. Okay. So let's now in our app.js, let's remove all our content that we had before, and instead just have home as our starting point. Okay. So let's see. Let's remove all the stuff we had earlier. All right. So we'll have maybe view. Let's remove all this. Remove this the styling perhaps. All right, and let's just load our home page. So this will be import home from components, and this will be home. And we'll just display home right here. Okay? Right, there's our home. Right, it looks really ugly right now. So we'll create a couple components, maybe a home component, a login component, a register component, a profile component. We'd like to be able to navigate between all of them, right? I think we did this early on with React.js. We did something similar again with Angular. Let's now do it with React Native. Okay. So to create a routing, what we'll do is that we'll install our Navigator, our React navigation. So we need to go here and install that. So we'll do npm install React navigation and save it. So make it as a dependency to our project. Once that is installed, we can now bring in from the React from the brand new installation that we've done, we can bring about this create stack navigator, right? Stack navigator. So let's do that. Let's in our home page, in our root starting point, let's bring that create stack navigator from React navigation. There it is. So it did install successfully. There we go. Okay. So what the create stack navigator does is it allows you to define what the stack looks like. Okay. Who's going to be at the top of the stack? What's the first thing you're going to see? And then from there on, how are you going to be pushing the following components onto the stack, and how they're going to be pulled out of the stack? How are you going to push them on the stack, and how are you going to pop them out of the stack? Okay. So to do that, we can declare a navigator as a result of using the create stack navigator. Right, create stack navigator. And the create stack navigator returns to us an object that then we can use as the root of our application. So we can give it an object where we can list and configure the stack. Right? For now we'll just have home be the top of the stack, our home component. Okay. Now the navigator. The create stack navigator can be as simple as just you listing the components. That's the easiest way to configure it. You list what components you have, and they are now declared in that order as part of the stack. Or you can be more specific and configure each element individually. Okay? And once you've configured the stack, right now our stack has a single element, right? And that's the element at the top of the stack. You can then use your navigator as the root of your application. Okay. There it is. Notice that now I have at the top. You see that top over there? That top tells me that I am inside of a navigation screen. I'm inside of a navigation screen. And that's the title of the screen. It doesn't know what to put in there. It doesn't know what title to use. It just has a space for me to configure it. Right? What it does is that it gives me three positions on that title over there. It has on the left-hand side, it can put a button for me to navigate backwards in the stack to pop this thing off the stack. In the middle, it has a title, a screen title. Which presumably a good title for the screen might be just home. Okay. Plus on the right-hand side, it would allow me to put other icons to interact with this. And this died. Why did you die? Hello. Maybe we need to restart. Let me restart. Let me kill this. Let's start it up again. So there's a couple of ways to configure these. You can configure it inside of the home component. The home component can say, "Hey, my title is so and so." Right? But it's actually much better to configure right here when you're creating the stack navigator. Right? And I put together a couple of slides for that. Where is it? No. Where'd you go? Maybe that's not it. Where are my slides? Slides. This is it. Here it is, yeah. We can configure the titles as follows. Right? We can use, instead of just providing the name of the component, right, that we want to list as a stack, right? We can actually use it to configure what titles we want, what particular component we want to use, whatnot. So let's configure the home. Right? Let's use this instead of declaring just the element. We can configure and provide an object to configure. We can say the component is going to be rendered. The screen is going to be rendered by the home component. So that allows me to tell me what component to use. But I also can configure several options, navigation options. Right, so the navigation options is a function, right, that from where we need to return a configuration object. Right? It says, how do you want to configure this? And it's a function because we need to be able, we can, if we want, calculate this object on the fly. We can calculate what this object might be, or you can just return something that is static. For instance, you might say that the title is just home. So you can either provide a static object. Here the function is returning a static object, or you can, on the fly, calculate what the title might be. Okay, the title might be, the concatenation of a couple of strings. It might have a date inside of it, right? It might have depending on what you clicked on. Depending on what you clicked on, you calculate what this object might be. Right, so if we rerun it again, it should display the home screen with the home title at the top. Maybe. Yes? No? There it is. Right. So notice at the top we have the title. It says that this is a navigation screen, and typically you would have on the left and right hand side you would have navigation buttons that would allow you to navigate forwards and backwards, right, from one further into the stack or shallower outside of the stack. Okay. All right, so we have the home screen. It's not very interesting. Let's just create a couple of these, right? Maybe the login, registration, profile, so we can then navigate between all of these. So let's do that. Let's create a couple of these. Let's create maybe a login. So this will be login screen. It'll look very, very similar to our home screen. So I'm just going to copy most of this. I'm just going to paste it. In here. The only difference is that it's going to have a different name. The component is going to be login. And the text is going to be login over here, and I'm going to export login. Yes? Right. And let's do something similar for another one, the registration page. Let's paste that. We'll call this registration. And in the registration, again, it's going to be very similar. We only want to play around with navigation. How do we navigate between these screens? So this is registration. Registration, and finally, let's do one more, profile. So this will be profile, and profile. All right, excellent. So we have all these components. We would like to be able to navigate between all of these, right? Presumably, if you click on login, you navigate to the profile, right? If you're on home page and you click that I want to register, you would then navigate to the registration page. Yes? Right, so to accomplish this, we need to declare all these as part of the stack. Right? The first element in the stack, that's the default starting point. Okay, so here, because home is declared first in this part of this object, it'll be the default screen that you see. Right? Although it doesn't have to be the first one, you can declare elsewhere. You can declare which one is the first one. By default, if you don't say anything, the one at the top is the one that displays first. So we have the home. We want to do something similar for login. We want to do something similar for registration. And we want to do something similar for profile. Make sense? Everybody good? Even though it's declared as a stack, you can treat it as if it were just a plain list. Right? It is okay, right, to jump between any screen, right, as long as it's part of this stack, but it doesn't have to be necessarily in the order of the stack. So for instance, it's okay to jump from home down to the profile. Right? But if you say back, you're gonna go back to the home screen. Or if it's okay to jump between profile and login. But if you say back, it'll go back to the profile. So it remembers, right, whatever you put in the stack. If you go back, it'll pop in the same order, in the reverse order in which you pushed. Okay. So similar to the home, we're going to declare for the login. We're going to declare that the element, the component that renders the login, it will be the login component. And as a title, I also want to say login. So similar for the registration, it'll be the registration screen. The component will be the registration screen. And the title at the top will be registration. And finally, the profile will be the profile element component, and the title will be profile. Everybody good? Now I need to load all those components. I don't have them here. I just have home. So I need to import all of these, right? So I need to import login, also from components login. Import what other one? Registration from components registration, and finally import profile from components profile. Okay, everybody okay? All right. If we go back, this is still stuck at home. Right? Notice that we don't have any mechanism for us to navigate away from home. Right? We need to add some actions here, some actions that we can use to notify that our intention is to navigate elsewhere. Right? So let's add a couple buttons. Let's add a couple buttons that will allow us to navigate between these screens. So what we could do here in the home screen, we could add a couple buttons. So let's add here underneath a button, and that button is going to be from the React Native elements. And the configuration typically is that you have a title here that says maybe login, and another button that might say sign up. Right, so if we go back to the home screen, notice that we have those screens now, right? We have the login button and the sign up button. Right? And we want to be able to navigate to either the registration page or the login page, right? Based on which one you click. Right now, nothing happens. So what happens is that when a component is added to a stack navigation, when you create the stack, something is added to the properties when you are instantiated. Right? A property is passed to you that has a specific name. It's called the navigation property. It's passed onto you whenever you are loaded for rendering. So we could use that property that's being passed on to us to affect navigation. Right? So for instance, we can say that on press, we could use the navigation. We can say navigation navigate, right, navigate, and then the name of whatever we use to configure. So whatever name we chose here, home, login, registration, right, we can use that to navigate wherever we want. So let's use that name. We can say, I want to navigate to login. Right? Okay. Or if we want to instead, if we clicked on, this is a function call, so on press, that's what I want to happen, right? And similar for the sign up button, if we clicked on that, we would like to navigate to, instead of login, we would like to navigate to registration. Registration. Make sense? Okay? Right, so if we go back, now if we click on login, right, it goes to the login page. right? Notice that a back button is added automatically, right? That allows you to navigate back to the home page, right? Or click on sign up. Navigates to the registration page. Now notice that the name that is selected here is the name as which they were configured when the Stack Navigator was created. Okay, although that can be configured as well. You can change it. You can change the text. You can change it to be an icon instead. You can compute it. Remember that object that in the navigation options, it's an object that can be calculated, and you can configure all these kinds of things. Okay, so you can navigate from home to two child elements and then navigate back. But you can also navigate across components, right? So not only top down, but you can also navigate across siblings, right? So for instance, the login and the sign up component might be considered siblings of each other, right? It doesn't really matter which order in which you navigate between from the home, right? You should be able to navigate across them between them as well. So let's add similarly buttons in the other components. For instance, in the login components, we would like to maybe add here a button, right? In the React Native elements, so button. That if I click on on the login, if I click on the login button, presumably I would check to see if this user exists, blah, blah, blah. And if it's successful, I would navigate to the profile page. Right? Or if I type on cancel or home, right? Well, I already have a home, right? I already have a home to go back. Although I could have navigated here from the registration page, right? So there's different places that I could have navigated from. I might want here always a button that always takes me home, perhaps. Right? It could be an icon at the bottom of the component that always takes me home. So this one always takes me home, regardless of where it came from. And similarly, we could do something similar in the registration. Right? If we go to the registration, we could also have here a couple buttons from the elements, React Native elements here, button, that if I register, then I navigate to the profile. I would insert this user, look them up if they're there already. If not, I insert them. And if it's successful, I navigate to the profile page. Or again, I can always go back to the home page from here. Okay. All right, so if we go back here and we click on login, notice that now I can either go back to home and it doesn't work. Wait, what? I can't find variable navigation. I misspelled it. Login. Navigate. Oh, homes. And homes. Computers. They always do exactly what they're told. I hate them. So if I go to login, right, I can navigate back to not home. What? Did I refresh? On press. Navigation, touchable, blah, blah, blah. Login. Do I have registration, default? That's fine. Oh, look at that! I haven't pulled off the navigation property. Of course, computers are always right. Navigation. There we go. And same thing for login. Login. There we go. Navigation. And probably in profile, I'll need that as well. Let's see. Login. Login. Okay. Now I can navigate to the profile. Or I can go back home, or I can go sign up. I can do a register, it goes to profile, or back home. Or I can have them cross, right, where registration and login can point to each other since they are siblings. We can have login, have another button here where I can register. Registration. And from the registration page, I can have a button that points back to a login. Right? So in login, I go back to login. So if I'm in the registration page, I want to log in. I do have an account. I can navigate to my login. So there it is. So from login, if I don't want to log in, I can go to registration. And now I'm in registration. I can go back to login, or I can jump directly to home, right? Or I can go back to login and just toggle between these two, right? Since they are siblings of each other, they're siblings to one another. I can stay there, or just register and go to the profile page. Make sense? All right. Everything else stays the same, right? These components still can, unload, perhaps make calls to RESTful services and retrieve information about a profile. That stays the same. We can pass also arguments or parameters when we navigate from one component to the other component, right? For instance, if I have a list of quizzes, right? I want to know, well, I want to navigate to that particular quiz, I can pass information about that particular quiz, right? And then because I want to load from the database, that particular quiz, right? And we'll do that next.